today's program, we continue our special series, Hearts and Minds Uplifted, a collection of short articles from the book of the same title. These stories by authors from all walks of life illustrate the tremendous personal growth that can be achieved by cultivating one's character through practicing Falun Gong.
When I was seeking revenge, I found Zhuan Falun instead, by a practitioner in China. Before learning Falun Gong, I had a really bad temper. I was very short-fused and often made a big deal out of trivial issues. I picked on my wife. I liked to break things when I had a tantrum, and I felt quite exhilarated afterwards. My mental breakdowns often scared my kids and agonized my wife to the point of crying. My family was on the brink of breaking up. Away from home, I was the one who had to have the last word. I was crazy about money and would fight to the last penny. I wouldn't mind going to jail for the right amount of money. I was extremely jealous. Due to my own bad temperament, I suffered poor health with numerous illnesses, such as migraine headaches, high blood pressure, bronchitis, and a slipped disc in my lower back that pressed against the nerves of my legs. I could not even take care of myself if it flared up. I couldn't even turn over in bed. I was suffering beyond words. One incident finally caused me to give up all hope. Some hoodlums and deputies in the county police department conspired to swindle 50,000 yen out of me in a business deal. They even threw me into the county detention center for 15 days. Even the jail guard was angry about this conspiracy and urged me to file a lawsuit against the police after I got out. I traveled far to file my lawsuit papers to the director of public safety, yet the director told me, even if they are convicted, you won't get your money back. I had no place to file my complaint, even though I was in the right. I had no place to appeal, even when I had been wrongly accused. From this point on, the people that I hated most were the police. It has been said, 10 years is not a long wait for a person seeking revenge. I thought about buying a gun. I would get revenge by killing these parasites fattened by the blood and sweat of the people. I would get rid of these hoodlums for the people. That was the one and only thought then on my mind. While I was looking for a gun all over the place, I was fortunate to instead come upon Master Li's book, Zhuan Falun. I read the book from cover to cover in one pass. I realized why we live as humans and how to live as a human. Today, mankind's ideologies are built upon self-interest. Everyone has sinned while lost in this labyrinth. If you mistreat me, I will treat you even worse. People will kill over trivial issues. I finally understood the principle of rewards and consequences will await both good and bad deeds, and one will pay back for one's own bad deeds. Master Li said in Zhuan Falun, quote, "Many people just live to prove their point or save face, and will hang themselves when they cannot deal with things anymore," unquote. Was it worthwhile? I was like a balloon with all its air let out. My criminal intention to kill for revenge was totally uprooted and dispersed. It was Master Li who saved me from a potential catastrophe in my life. The outcome would have been unthinkable. Since I have practiced Falun Dafa, my explosive temper has disappeared, together with my jealousy. My lower back pain and headaches are all miraculously gone, just like my other illnesses. My body is in good health. My family life is much more harmonious and perfectly satisfactory. Gone are the sounds of arguments and squabbles. My cultivation still has a long way to go. When others hurt my feelings, I cannot be quite at ease with them. Sometimes, I will still be mad inside myself. Master Li has said that forbearance is the key to improving one's character, and that to endure with hatred, grievances, or tears is the forbearance of an ordinary person who is attached to his misgivings. To bear without any hatred or grievance at all is the forbearance of a practitioner. I can do much more to improve on my forbearance, as I am far short of the level of Master Li's requirement. But at least I can control myself and not hurt others and not fight with others. I can see the vast difference in myself before and after cultivation practice. It is Falun Dafa that transformed me and that allowed me to see the hope and glory. Master Li has taught us how to build an unselfish, considerate, righteous attitude through cultivation. One should return to one's original true self. This is why all over the country, Falun Dafa practitioners are adopting various means to clarify the truth about the persecution. They are willing to face the tremendous pressure, risking their lives and careers to step forward. Many of them have been imprisoned without reason, and many have suffered atrocious tortures. They are facing and braving everything while following the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance.
Reading Zhuan Falun reunited my family by a young practitioner in China. The book Zhuan Falun transformed my family life. Before I began practicing Falun Dafa, my family would quarrel incessantly. Since studying Zhuan Falun, my family relationships have improved. After finishing Zhuan Falun for the first time, I began studying it regularly, doing the exercises with my classmates, and cultivating steadily in my daily life. To my surprise, I found myself changing. I stopped competing with others, and I began to think from other people's perspective. If there was something that others did not want to do but should be done, I would take the initiative and do it myself. At the time, my father was having an extramarital affair. He also had a bad temper and would fight with my mother. His heart was not in our home. Since I knew Zhuan Falun was a good book, I introduced it to my mother. Then a miracle happened. After my mother read this book, my parents, who were divorced at the time, gradually started to get along. They went to the south to work together. Now they are living together again as a happy couple. My mother said that soon when their businesses stabilizes, they will send for me. My family and I had been shrouded in darkness. After reading Zhuan Falun, my family has gone through a transformation process. Now I am enjoying the love of both parents. My family is very peaceful and harmonious. I feel so fortunate and so happy.
How I resolved a long-term conflict with my husband by a Falun Dafa practitioner in China. Before I started practicing Falun Dafa, both my husband and I had short tempers and would never yell to each other. We spent most of our time fighting. Then my husband was sentenced to prison, and his family also had several accidents. I asked my mother-in-law to live with me and let her to practice Falun Dafa. 3 years later, my husband was released. Although he had no income, he spent money freely while I tried to be thrifty. I tried to tolerate him, but he still picked on me. Once over a minor issue, he pointed his finger at my nose and insulted me in the presence of my mother-in-law and my friends. I was miserable and often cried. Since I practiced Dafa, I understood the principles and realized that I needed to practice forbearance. When I encountered conflicts, I always tried to improve my character, but because I did not look within and find my attachments, the conflict still continued. I still could not always control my temper. This went on for a long time. It was after carefully reading the 9 commentaries on the Communist Party 4 times that I truly found my attachment, the heart of fighting. It has been rooted deeply in me for many years. Sometimes it comes out without my even knowing it. When I looked within, I found that when I talked to my husband, I always had an unyielding attitude and challenging tone of voice. I had not had a heart-to-heart conversation with him since he had returned from prison. Although I tolerated him superficially, I looked down on him in my heart. I thought, you are dependent on my salary, but now you want to control me. If I were not a practitioner, I would have divorced you. With this kind of thinking, I could not really care for him or think well of him. Usually, he did the grocery shopping and bought the vegetables. But when he got home, I was always unhappy with what he had bought. Understandably, this agitated him. One time he spent nearly 100 yuan to buy a bouquet for my birthday. I not only did not thank him, but I also complained that he had spent too much money. He was initially very happy but became depressed after that. In retrospect, all of this was my fault. I had always wanted to be strong. Before cultivation, I had the nickname Superwoman and would never yield to others. After beginning my cultivation, although I could tolerate fellow practitioners and friends, I could not do it at home. My behavior was far from the standard of a practitioner. How could I achieve truthfulness, compassion, forbearance? My cultivation state varied all the time. A fellow practitioner said that there are no shortcuts in cultivation, and only by studying the Fa well can we look within, change ourselves, and improve. If we're not compassionate with our family members who have shortcomings, it is as if we're not cultivating. His words inspired me. Once I found my attachment, I changed my attitude. Now I see my husband's strong points and my own shortcomings. I care for him and I'm more considerate. Because of my change of heart, my husband has changed his attitude toward me and toward Falun Dafa. Initially, he claimed that he would send me to the Public Security Bureau. Now he has come to understand and support Dafa. He often helps me to buy tapes, repair the tape recorder, and maintain the Dafa books. So that I could study the Fa at night, he bought several desk lamps and clamped one to the bed. On World Falun Dafa Day, he ordered a cake with 3 white lotus flowers on top because his mother, myself, and our granddaughter are all practitioners. While I was writing this article, I asked my husband to buy some paper. He forgot and only remembered it once he got home. He then went back out to get it. The change in his attitude has made the whole family happy and has positively influenced our daughter. She bought me a cell phone for Dafa work. They all withdrew from the Chinese Communist Party too. My cultivation environment is becoming better and better, and I have come to a deeper understanding of Master Li's teachings.
Dafa is rapidly changing people's hearts by a practitioner in China. When I first began working at a new company, a coworker came over to tell me about all her grievances. She did that almost every day. At first I felt it was a bit annoying, but I realized since I was cultivating truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, I should show my compassion. Therefore, I always listened patiently to her complaints, and after she was finished talking, I would tell her principles from the teachings of Falun Dafa that were applicable to her case. After that, she said that Falun Gong truly made sense, that it resolved the puzzling questions in her mind and enabled her to see things more clearly. I encouraged her to begin practicing, but she always used being too busy as an excuse. Once, my coworker was careless in her speech and offended a colleague. This colleague reported the problem to the company manager, and the whole thing became more serious. I turned to Zhuan Falun and used the teachings to guide her. That night, she received a call from the offended colleague, who screamed at her over the phone. At once, she recalled Dafa's principles about taking matters of individual gain and interpersonal conflicts more lightly. As a result, she apologized to her colleague. The caller's attitude changed immediately, and she admitted that she herself was also at fault. The next day, my coworker told me the story and said that she wanted to practice Dafa with me. I had not expected that after knowing me for just a few months. She would be influenced by Dafa and elevate her character. She became much more relaxed and open-minded. Other colleagues also noticed the changes in her and told me about it, saying that Falun Dafa was truly wonderful. They said it was indeed a good cultivation practice, benefiting people in both body and mind. I knew that this was all the power of Dafa, that it could change people's hearts so rapidly.
Living a New Life by a Western practitioner in the US. I want to share with you the profound changes I've experienced in my life since beginning to practice Falun Dafa a little over a year ago. The differences are like night and day. In order for you to appreciate these differences, I must share a little about my life from the time I was a child all the way up until I started to practice. When I was only 4 years old, my parents divorced. With my younger brother and mother, I moved around a lot. I went to many different schools and wound up spending most of my time with older kids who introduced me to many negative things. From a very early age, drugs and sex were a driving force in my life. These elements determined everything in my life, dictating my thoughts and actions. I eventually quit school at the age of 15 because I was consumed with this demonic nature. I was good-natured at the core, but my lifestyle with drugs and women not only hurt me but also affected others, especially women. Miraculously, despite my clouded state, I was always able to hold down a decent paying job ever since I dropped out of school. I was able to marry at the age of 19 and hold the marriage together until now, 24 years later. During this time, I raised 2 healthy daughters, both of whom thrive in school. Because of an innate goodness, I was able to instill in my children a sense of morality and provide them with a stable environment. All the while, however, to support my bad side, I always had a second job that went solely to my addictions. But no matter how they consumed me, they were unable to destroy my divine nature and my longing to cultivate. One day, my mother told me about a Qigong practice called Falun Gong. In the past, there were many things that my mother had tried to introduce to me so that I could break free from my bad habits, but this was somehow different. The moment she told me about Falun Gong, I felt a subtle but powerful spark from within. I didn't want her to push anything on me, so I kept that feeling to myself. Nonetheless, the very next day, she brought over Master Lee's exercise video and took me through some of the exercises. Something clicked and shined like gold, but again, I kept it to myself. I called my mom and asked her about the Falun Gong practice site in my area. I told her I wanted to go to the next one. She told me the time and location, and I planned to go, but on the way to the practice site, I got lost and ended up being an hour late. But for whatever reasons, the class didn't start on time. They too were an hour late. I was very pleased and apologized for being late. As we practiced the exercises that day, I felt very strong energy sensations throughout my whole body. I was amazed. I took home from the practice site the exercise videotape and the book Falun Gong. I learned the exercises the next day and began reading the book. I exercised and studied each day until the next group practice a week later. That week, my thoughts became clearer and clearer until a miraculous thing occurred. At the time, I had no thoughts or desires for Falun Gong to remove my addictions. In fact, I wasn't even trying to quit the drugs, alcohol, and womanizing at that point in my life. I had tried numerous times before to break those habits, but on more than one occasion, I wound up in the hospital because of overwhelming withdrawal symptoms and physical shutdown. But as I practiced and studied the Fa that week, I realized that I wanted clarity. I realized that I wanted to practice and study more, and that these negative things were getting in the way. That week, I did fewer and fewer negative things, until the morning of the next group practice when I came to the realization that I didn't want to do these things at all. More than anything, I wanted to go to that next class clean. I threw out my drugs and alcohol, and from that day since, I have never gone back. What is even more miraculous is that I didn't encounter any degree of cravings or a desire to go back to that way of life. My life was utterly changed so quickly, so naturally. My family and friends were completely amazed. Thank you so much, Master Lee. So many profound changes have come over me in a little over 1 year's time. I now have a new understanding about life. The purpose of life is for me to return to my original true self and ascend from my previous life of delusion. My only desires now are to be truthful and compassionate and to always forbear. I never lose my temper and always consider others when I speak. Now that I have found Dafa, my wife and daughters always smile, as do the rest of my family and friends.
My life is a lot better when my heart is practicing truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance by a practitioner from Ecuador living in the U.S. I live in North Carolina now, but I'm originally from Ecuador, South America. In order to improve my spiritual life, I'd been practicing some other cultivation ways for about 24 years. I'd always been trying to improve the health of my body, mind, and spirit. But for many years, no matter how I tried to improve the quality of my life, I always had a lot of tribulations, problems, misfortunes, and miseries. Fortunately, one morning in September 1998, while walking around a lake, I saw a young man performing his meditation practice. I felt that I would like to practice that type of meditation together with him. Something stronger than my own wish was pushing me to talk with him. But I couldn't because I felt respect for what he was doing and didn't want to interrupt him. The next day, the same thing happened. But on the third day, I couldn't hold my strong desire any longer, and I decided to interrupt his exercise practice. I introduced myself to him. After a short, friendly conversation, I asked him if there were books describing his exercises. Soon afterwards, he gave me a set of books, Falun Gong, Zhuan Falun, and an exercise instruction tape. Since that day, thanks to Master Lee's wonderful teachings of cultivation and the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, my life has changed a great deal, in terms of my physical body as well as my mind and my spirituality. At present, I am an understanding person, and I offer my benevolence when I am mistreated in life. When I am faced with conflicts, I think this is an opportunity to increase my forbearance and to practice what I have learned from Falun Dafa. For example, a few weeks ago, I was returning home from group practice in the park. I was driving on a road where two lanes merged into one, and I had the right of way. Suddenly, a car from the other lane cut me off. Since I was comfortably driving under the speed limit, I had no problem controlling my car. Unfortunately, another person tried to do the same, but he failed, and my car was hit on the rear right side. I reduced my speed to stop. This person was so upset that he hit the back of my car again on purpose. Both of us stepped out of our cars. As I was approaching him, he insulted me with a lot of bad words, like a typical bully. At that moment, I started to experience the reaction I had in a similar situation years ago. But this time, my mind was thinking about Master Lee's teachings on forbearance. Therefore, with a kind voice, I told this person, "I do not understand why you are so upset. It is my car which was damaged, not yours." He had no option but to calm down. When I was getting a piece of paper to write down his name and driver's license, he suddenly drove away so fast that I could not even see his license plate number. I was thankful that, due to learning about forbearance from Master Lee, I behaved in a different way from how I used to. I did not lose anything other than a few minutes and some scratches on my car, but at the same time, I gained a lot of peace in my soul. I now know that it is indeed possible to love and forgive those who try to do bad things to us. I have experienced firsthand that my life is a lot better when my heart is practicing truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Spiritually, I had been very dedicated to my beliefs, always hoping to get something better for my spirit, but my improvement had been very slow. In my first month of Falun Dafa practice, My character improved much faster compared with my previous 24 years in other spiritual practices. Today, I have more control over my thoughts, and through the exercises, I can drain out the negative thoughts that enter my mind. Before, it was almost impossible to do. Increasing my forbearance in conjunction with truthfulness and compassion is a great blessing that is enlightening my life, which allows me to share the peace that everybody wants to feel inside. Because of the above changes, today I am a peaceful, harmonious, healthy, and happy person with a lot more tenderness, benevolence, love, respect, tolerance, understanding, and forgiveness, not only for my family members, but for all of humanity. In short, I think Falun Dafa is great. I hope from the bottom of my heart that every single person in the world will get the opportunity to learn about Falun Dafa.
I found Falun Dafa and left behind my life of crime by a practitioner in China. Had I not found Master Li's Falun Dafa, I would not still be in this world. I used to go astray routinely and became involved in crime. I pursued money and material pleasure. I dared to do any bad thing and eventually descended into hell of drug addiction. I tried to quit, but without the desire to be good from within my heart, abstinence was impossible. I spent all of my savings on drugs. In order to obtain money for more drugs, I participated in mob plots and was beaten. My right hand was broken and a crashing fall fractured both my feet. My wife left me. There was nothing left in my house. I became emaciated, and yet the bad habits still ensnared me. I thought I had come to the end of my life and prepared to leave this world by committing suicide. Before killing myself, I went to say farewell to my only friend. Fortunately, he was practicing Falun Dafa at the time and recommended it to me. I opened Zhuan Falun and read the preface and the first lecture. I immediately knew Zhuan Falun was not an ordinary book. I eagerly read it through and totally forgot about my suicidal thoughts. I decided to cultivate and took the first step on the path to start my life over again. Through learning the Fa, I understood that the real purpose of life is to return to one's original, true self by cultivating and assimilating to the nature of the universe. Zhen, truthfulness; Shan, compassion; Ren, forbearance. Through cultivation practice, I would discard all of my bad habits. The first thing was to abstain from drugs. Addiction specialists were astounded when I quit taking drugs without taking any medication the second day after I read Zhuan Falun. Restricting myself to the cosmic characteristic of truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, I firmly practiced Falun Dafa and have never used drugs again. Some former addict companions came to my house and wanted to do drugs, but they could not rekindle my old desire, and I even advised them to quit. They never bothered me again. I let go of my past life completely. Now, I have a legitimate profession, a fulfilling life, and a healthy body. I am full of energy. Master Li and Falun Gong saved me and provided me with a bright path of life. Thank you for listening to Hearts and Minds Uplifted, a special series brought to you by Minghui Radio. For more information, including news about the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners in China and experience sharing stories by practitioners around the world, please visit our website at en.minghui.org.